how to get the supervisors hooked in,
and what are the damages? What damages arise from a violation of relationship between a parent and a child? And what do you need to assert when you're putting in that initial complaint? What needs to be said? And in what detail? He's going to go into the areas of litigation, child abuse investigations, the entry into the home, what's involved in that, what's required before law enforcement or civil authorities, which is what CPS is, because they're not cops. What they have to do, what they have to be able to say before they go into a house and grab kids. The juvenile court proceedings, he'll talk a little bit about that. He's going to talk about the Child Abuse Central Index. And then he'll discuss with you, he'll share with you your constitutional rights, parents' constitutional rights during the pendency of the litigation and the pendency of the child welfare case. So, I introduce to you Sean McMillan.
Well, we only have about 2 hours and 15 minutes left. I read that outline of all the things we're going to cover in excruciating detail, and that's a pretty tall order. So what I think we're going to do is just get straight away with it and start with the anatomy. Well, let me ask this first. How many of you right now are in a position where you are contemplating filing a civil lawsuit? All right, well, almost everybody. How many of you are in a civil lawsuit? Okay. So why don't we start with, since it's the majority of the people here that are thinking about filing a lawsuit or are currently in it, we'll start with the basic anatomy of your lawsuit. And basically what your pleading is, that will be your complaint. Essentially what you're doing in your complaint is you are telling your story. Now, regardless of where you're planning on filing that complaint, whether it's in federal or state court, the statutory construction that you follow only requires that you lay out a plain, simple, concise, direct statement of the facts that support your claim. Well, God, what the hell does that mean? Really? And the problem with following that rule is that nobody really knows what that means. The judges don't know. Don't ever publish this to some judge. That would be a bad thing. At least in my view, the judges don't consistently know exactly what is going to state a viable claim. The attorneys that are involved in this type of stuff, they don't know exactly what's going to state a viable claim. What we're trained in law school is that every claim has elements. It's like negligence. You have duty, breach, causation, damages. So if you look at a negligence complaint that's a cookie cutter deal, it'll say somebody had a duty, whatever that duty was. They did something that violated that duty, and I was injured. How do you get from that the emotional truth, the context of what really happened to that person? You really can't. So what we do in our complaints, and we get a protest out of the government attorneys every single time we do this. They complain that our complaints read like a novel and that somehow that violates the pleading rules in either federal or state court. It doesn't matter which one you're at. But what it does for you, because you are operating in a very complex, cutting-edge area of the law, and you're likely to end up on appeal, what it does for you, if you lay out the specific facts of your story, and it is a story, in such a way that the reader is drawn in and they want to help you, when you take that up on appeal, and the appellate court is reading that, their inclination is going to be to go with you unless there's something really horrid that you've missed. And that's what we're going to try to help you do, is tell your story in such a way that you fit the legal requirements for a complaint that should go all the way. So we start with your story. There's actually something else we start with. You have to name all the parties, identify who they are, who they work for, what their position is in the overall hierarchy of the agency that you're suing, and it's usually going to be the Child Protective Services or DCFS. Different counties call them different things, but it's essentially social workers and the agency they work for. You identify all of them, what role they played in your particular situation, and that's it. In the second part of your complaint, and we call that the general allegations section, that's where you're going to tell the details of your story. Now, you're not going to start out by saying, they took my child, it violated my 4th or 14th Amendment rights, or whatever it is, or my constitutional rights, and I should get some money. That's not the way you do it. I can give you an example, a complaint that we recently, well, not recently filed, but that we recently had upheld. The story starts out that the client woke up Monday morning, 7:30, prepared her children, she had 3 of them, prepared her children a breakfast of organic eggs and spinach, and orange juice that she squeezed herself by hand before she sent them off to school. That's the first line of the story. That has nothing to do with my civil rights or anything else. What we're doing there is we're letting the reader, who's going to be the judge ultimately, or the jury, that's going to be our opening statement when we're addressing the jury. We're going to tell the jury who this person is and have her there and show them that this is a good mother. She's taking exceedingly good care of her children. That's the first stage that we're setting. Because we all know what happens later. Some social workers or cops or somebody are going to bust in the door and grab these kids. So that's the way that we want to construct our story. Now, there are certain legal requirements that your story should meet as you're moving through it. Like, for instance, in fact, we'll just pan forward to the interaction with the government. After we already know that this mother woke up early and took care of her kids, got them dressed for school on a regular day, we get to the phone call. Her child, her 11-year-old daughter, calls her on the cell phone from school in a panic. Mama, what's happening? The sheriffs are here and they're taking me. What should I do? The phone goes dead. Mom, what's she thinking now? She's in a panic. She's scared. She's frightened. Nobody's talked to her. She doesn't know what's happening. She gets another call from her older daughter on the cell phone. Mom, I gotta let you know they're taking us down to the sheriff's office. We don't know what's happening. 11 months later, after spending 11 months in a juvenile detention facility, the children come back to Mom, but she doesn't get all of her children back, only 2. That's the story. That is the essential part, the emotional truth. I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't feel the fear that woman felt, or the terror her children felt when they were taken. That's what you want your reader to have. You want them to ask, why? Why is this happening? I want to read more. I want to look at this. I want to help these people. So we look further, and we find out that Mom earlier, perhaps, had a confrontation with somebody in law enforcement, maybe a social worker, maybe a cop, maybe an ex-spouse, somebody that had something going on to trigger this whole thing.
I have a question real quick.
Sure.
What if the social worker had disclosed their position as a foster parent and asked them to leave your home?
Say that again?